What is a workshop facilitator? People use the word facilitator all the time, but it's not often clearly defined. Is it leading a process? Is it guiding? Is it teaching? Is there a difference between a trainer and a facilitator? In this video, we're going to unpack what a facilitator actually is, and I'm going to give you a new way to think about your role in the room. Plus, I'm going to share one distinction that I wish I knew when I first started out 20 odd years ago. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Kerri Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been facilitating for 20 odd years, and I've led thousands of meetings, workshops, and community conversations. Now I show other trainers and facilitators how to do it well too. So like I said in the opening, in this video, I'm going to share with you the definition of facilitation. What is facilitation all about? I'm going to talk about how facilitation, or being a facilitator, is a bit like being a conductor. And the one distinction that changed everything for me, it's not all on you. How do you share responsibility for the success of the workshop with your participants? Okay, so what is the definition of facilitation? Well, you can sum it up in a whole bunch of ways, but the actual definition is to make something easier or possible. So depending on where you use the word facilitation or facilitator, it changes the context just a little bit. So for example, a real estate agent facilitates the smooth purchase or sale of a property. They make it easier or possible to buy and sell property. Same goes for a travel agent. They facilitate smooth and enjoyable travel. So they make it easier or possible for people to go on holiday easily and have a great time. When it comes to our role as workshop facilitators or training facilitators or group facilitators, we make it easier or possible for groups of people to come together, to discuss, to explore, to debate, to learn, to decide, and ultimately take action. So our role as a workshop facilitator is to make it easier or possible for groups to come together and do whatever it is they need to do in the room. So if that's the definition of facilitation, to make something easier or possible, I like to think of my role as a facilitator a bit like being a conductor in an orchestra. My role is not to play the violin, to play the keyboard, to do percussion. I don't need to know how to play the instrument. My role is just to bring all of those musicians together, to bring the different skill sets, to bring the different attitudes, the egos, the reasons for being there into one place so that they can play the most amazing piece of music ever. That's the role of a facilitator too. And it's easy to think that a great conductor is the one at the front of the room waving their arms around and being all flamboyant. But that's only a tiny piece of the puzzle, and it's not necessarily what makes the music or the performance successful. The role of the conductor starts way before they get onto stage. Before they can do anything on stage, the conductor first needs to get really clear about the purpose of the performance. Why is this orchestra coming together? What's this piece of music about? Is it a technical piece, in which case they need to get it, really absolutely correct? It's for a competition or something they'll be marked on. Is it just background music? Maybe it's a little bit of ambience at a party or an event. Is this piece of music something people are going to watch as well as listen to? Are you wanting an upbeat music or something a little slower paced? The conductor doesn't know what to do on stage, doesn't know where to send people if they're first not really clear on the purpose of the performance. So that's the first thing. The second thing the conductor needs to get right is the plan. And for a conductor, that's the sheet music. He or she needs to know when they want to speed the music up, when they want to slow it down, when they might be inviting a soloist or a couple of people to play together, when they might want the trumpeters to stand up and make a big performance. They need to have a plan that they're following in order to achieve the overall purpose. And then, and only then, once they're clear on the purpose and they have a plan, Can they worry about how they show up in the room, how they direct the members of the orchestra through the plan to achieve the overall purpose? And that's the same for us as facilitators. Before we can worry about what we're doing in the room, we first have to get really clear on the purpose of the session. Why are people coming together in the first place? What would success look like? What are we ultimately trying to achieve here? And then only once we know the purpose can we design the plan. Can we work out how we're going to move through the day in order for that purpose to be achieved at the end. Once you have a plan in place, that's the bit you see as a facilitator. In the front of the room, using your voice, your body language, your activities, the different structures and processes that guide people through the plan to achieve the purpose. Okay, so we've talked about the definition of facilitation, making something easier or possible. We've talked about how being a facilitator is a bit like being a conductor in an orchestra. Now I want to share the one distinction that I wish I knew 20 years ago when I first started out doing this kind of work. And that is, it's not all on you. As a facilitator, it's easy to think that when you come into the room, the success or not of the workshop is all up to you. But actually the energy, the attitudes, the contribution that other people bring to the room is just as important. And so one of the things that I do as a facilitator is to make it really clear with participants that they're equally responsible for the success. How I usually frame that up is something like this. It's my intention that today is going to be useful and not just interesting. But I'm only partly responsible for the success of that. If you want this workshop to be useful and not just interesting too, there's 3 things I need from you. The first is I need you to be open-minded. Over the course of today, I'm going to share with you some things that might bump up against what you already know to be true. It might give you a little bit of goosebumps in a bad way, not a good way, and you might feel really uncomfortable with what's being shared. Equally, other people in the room might share ideas and opinions that you don't necessarily agree with too. My invitation in those moments is for you to lean in, listen up, and be open-minded. Because it's usually in those moments of kind of discomfort that the real learning and breakthroughs can happen. So that's the first responsibility I'm sharing with participants, is the invitation to be open-minded. The second invitation that I share with participants is I let them know that I want them to engage in the process. I design all of my workshops for contribution, not just consumption. Hat tip to Chad Littlefield for that phrase. But the workshop only works if other people contribute. And so my invitation to participants is that they engage in the process. I explain to them that sometimes it might not be obvious why I'm inviting them to do something. It might feel a little bit clunky or out of place, but if they choose to lean in and engage anyway, chances are they're going to get more out of the day. And then the third thing that I share with participants in terms of sharing responsibility is the invitation for them to take action. They can go through a whole workshop, we can explore some great stuff, we can learn some cool things, they might even make some collective decisions, but unless they take action after the workshop, it's been an interesting day and not that useful. I give them a heads up that at the end of the workshop, we're going to check in and I'm going to invite people to commit to one thing they're going to do or do differently as a result of the day. Now, of course, not everyone has to do that. They don't have to be open-minded. They don't need to engage in the process. They don't have to commit to taking action. But right at the start, I share with participants that that's on them. I can only do my part. If they want it to be useful, they also need to do theirs. So now you know what a workshop facilitator is and a workshop facilitator does. It'll be really useful for you to know how to design a workshop. So in my next video, how to design a workshop, I'll step you through a 3-part process that makes it easy to have the right discussions in the right order, in the right way. The link is in the description below. Go check it out.